Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, looking at the stack of research you sent over for this one, I actually thought you made a mistake.
A mistake? Like a filing error?
Yeah, literally. I opened the first file, and it's this aggressive, gritty, street-level hip-hop manifesto. I'm thinking, okay, we're profiling an underground rapper.
Right.
Then I open the next file, and it's talking about tetrahedrons, sacred geometry, Nikola Tesla, and then the third one is bluegrass.
It really does look like a filing error, doesn't it?
It looks like 3 different people's hard drives just got mashed together in a zip file. But you're telling me this is all one mind.
It is. Today we're profiling a creator known as MadLabz. Yeah. And the reason this feels so disjointed at first glance is that we aren't just reviewing a musician or a poet or a philosopher. We're looking at a case study in, well, what I'd call cognitive dissonance as an art form.
Cognitive dissonance usually makes people uncomfortable.
Exactly. And that is entirely the point. We have 6 transcripts here today, texts from videos titled 357 Steps, Fermilab, The Climb, Pennies to Dimes, Gone Mad, and The Starseed Awakening.
Quite the lineup.
It is, and to understand them, you have to throw out the idea that a person fits neatly into one box. Our mission today is to answer a specific question. Who is this guy actually? Is he a rapper? A philosopher? Some futurist warning us about AI? Or is he just a conspiracy theorist with a really good rhyme scheme?
That's the mission. We're going to try to find the pattern in all this noise because we need to figure out how someone goes from talking about stacking pennies on the street to surfing the cosmic code in a simulation.
Yeah.
Because usually those two conversations, they do not happen in the same room, let alone the same brain.
It's a wild ride. But there is a logic to it, I promise. And I think the best place to start isn't with the dense philosophy, but with the attitude. Yeah. Because before you get to the aliens or the math, the first thing that hits you in these texts is just pure defiance. Specifically, the source material from The Climb.
The Climb. Yeah, I read this one first. It felt like a manifesto.
It essentially is a declaration of independence.
There's a line here that I circled 3 times because it just seemed so, well, counterintuitive. He says, rap when I'm heavy, bluegrass when I'm free. Now, on the surface, sure, that's just a genre preference. But in the context of the modern creator economy, that is absolute heresy.
It really is. Think about how the algorithm works for you or me or anyone listening right now. If you want to grow on YouTube or Spotify or even just build a brand on LinkedIn, what is the absolute first rule everyone tells you?
Find your niche.
Find your niche. Pick a lane and stay in it. If you're the true crime host, you do true crime.
Yeah.
If you start posting about, gardening, the audience leaves.
Right. The algorithm gets confused. It punishes variance. If you post a rap video today and a banjo solo tomorrow, the system literally doesn't know who to show your content to. It buries you.
Precisely. MadLabz knows this.
Yeah.
And he is saying explicitly, I do not care.
He's choosing authenticity over optimization.
He's defining himself by his internal state, the mood that I breathe, as he puts it in the text. He's not looking at external marketability. If he wants to hit a banjo because he feels rude on the knee, he's going to do it.
But he takes it a step further than just ignoring the algorithm. He's almost hostile toward the audience.
Yeah.
He says, I ain't here to please your taste. I'm not here to shine just to mirror your face.
That's the anti-influencer stance.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Most creators are just desperate for validation. Please like, please subscribe, please tell me I'm good. This text completely flips that dynamic. He says, if you don't like the channel, don't subscribe. Mind your own business.
Don't watch my shit. That was the actual line.
It's blunt.
It's incredibly blunt. But honestly, I think that's why it resonates. We are so used to being pandered to online. We're used to creators begging for our attention. When someone turns their back and says, I'm doing this for me, you can watch if you want. It actually makes you want to lean in and watch more.
Because it signals that he isn't selling you anything. It creates a firm boundary. He refers to the audience trying to chain him. He says, I give you the blueprint, I hand you the keys, but don't try to chain me. He views the traditional creator and fan relationship as a form of captivity. He refuses to be a pawn. That word pawn appears multiple times across the texts.
I'm not your pawn. Don't box me in. There is a real sense of combat in that independence, though. It's not a peaceful, zen, I'm just doing my thing vibe. It's highly active. He says, I sharpen my pen like a blade made of steel.
That imagery of the weaponized pen is so telling. It suggests that for MadLabz, art isn't just about self-expression, it's defense.
A defense mechanism.
Right. It's how he protects that autonomy. He feels like the world or the audience or the industry is constantly trying to put a leash on my life, and his creativity is the knife he uses to cut that leash.
Which makes you wonder, where does that defensiveness come from? Why is he so ready for a fight? Why does he feel like everyone is trying to leash him in the first place?
And that question leads us perfectly into the second piece of the puzzle. We have to look at where he came from. We need to pivot over to the source, pennies to dimes.
Yeah, this text feels like a completely different universe from The Climb. The Climb was all about high-minded artistic freedom. Pennies to Dimes is about pure survival. It's gritty.
It is the foundation. You really can't understand the philosopher without understanding the survivor first. In Pennies to Dimes, he talks about how I came up from nothing, stacking pennies, making dimes.
Sharper than a razor. There's that blade imagery popping up again.
Yes, but here it's applied to the hustle. This establishes a very real backstory of struggle. This isn't some abstract art made in a comfortable ivory tower. This is art born from absolute necessity. Watching all the dollars drown, he knows what it's like to have nothing, and that experience has deeply hardened him.
It explains the distrust, doesn't it? In The Climb, he didn't want the audience to own him. In Pennies to Dimes, it seems like he doesn't want anyone near him at all. He says, kept my circle tight, never let the hate pockets on SW. And then this line, enemies crap, but my instincts quicker.
That line is really revealing. Enemies crap, but my instincts quicker. It connects his extreme skepticism directly to his survival. He trusts his instincts over societal promises because, we can presume, he has been burned badly before. He says it plainly, love costs a price, and the hustle gets bit.
Love costs a price. That is a heavy, heavy lesson to learn. It sounds like he's saying that being vulnerable is a luxury he literally can't afford.
Exactly. It implies a history of betrayal. And when you view that anti-influencer persona we just talked about through this specific lens, it makes so much more sense. He refuses to be a pawn because he knows the devastating costs of trusting the wrong people. He relies entirely on himself. Solid to the core, he calls it.
But even in this gritty, street-level hustle environment, there is still this underlying sense of a higher code. He says, eyes on the vision, always ready for the show, and man, that's the forever in my soul.
Right, even when he's talking about stacking pennies, he's talking about vision. He isn't just trying to get rich quick. He's trying to execute a long-term plan. He mentions a code that I hold. He views himself as a man of intense discipline. He isn't a chaotic criminal. He's a highly disciplined survivor.
Okay, so we have the defiant creator who refuses to be niched down, and we have the street philosopher who trusts his instincts above all else, a guy who came from nothing, trusts no one but his tight circle, and refuses to be controlled. But then things get weird.
Oh, here is where the MadLabz name really starts to earn its keep.
We have to talk about 357 steps. Because if Pennies to Dimes is the street, 357 steps is the temple. And suddenly we aren't talking about rap battles or hustling anymore. We're talking about, well, high-level math.
This is the massive shift from the physical hustle to the metaphysical architecture. This is where MadLabz starts to sound a lot less like a rapper and way more like a mystic.
The line that perfectly summarizes this entire persona for me is in this source. He says, like Alan Watts in the woods with a sub in the ride.
It's such a brilliant image. Let's unpack that for a second. Alan Watts was the British philosopher who really popularized Eastern philosophy, Zen Buddhism, Taoism for Western audiences back in the 60s and 70s. He's known for this very calm, soothing voice talking about the nature of existence and how we are all interconnected.
And a sub in the ride, a subwoofer. Booming bass. The ultimate symbol of hip-hop and car culture.
Right. So he's essentially saying, I have the mind of a Zen philosopher, but I'm driving a car that rattles the windows. It's the perfect synthesis of the ancient and the modern. He says, reggae in a heartbeat, hip-hop in the spine. But then he immediately pivots to triangles in the mind, 369. We don't chase, we align.
Okay, let's talk about the math, because this is where I got a bit lost. He is utterly obsessed with numbers and geometry in this text. Cast out the nines, 369, tetrahedrons in the glow. I've heard of 369 in passing, usually on, weird late-night internet rabbit holes. What is he actually talking about here?
It's a direct reference to Nikola Tesla. Tesla famously said, if you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe.
Okay, but what does that practically mean? Is it magic?
Not magic, no. In vortex math and certain esoteric traditions, the numbers 3, 6, and 9 are considered the governing patterns of energy itself. The theory goes that 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8 represent the physical world, the material things we can touch and see. But 3, 6, and 9 represent the flux fields, the invisible energy that connects all of those material things. The 9 is often seen as the symbol of absolute completion, or the universe itself.
So when he says cast out the nines, is he talking about a mathematical process?
Yes. Casting out nines is actually an old arithmetic check used to verify calculations. But metaphorically, MadLabz is talking about filtering his reality. He's looking for the underlying signal, the 369, beneath the chaotic noise of everyday life. He's saying, I'm not chasing these things. I'm aligning with the natural geometric flow of the universe.
He calls it sacred geometry. He explicitly says architecture is a metaphor.
That right there is the key insight for this entire section. Architecture is a metaphor. When he talks about triangles in the mind or building a temple, he isn't talking about literal bricks and mortar. He's talking about his mental health.
Mental health, how so? Break that connection down for me.
Think about the previous section we just covered. The hustle, the struggle, the constant chaos of survival on the street.
Yeah.
That life is fluid, messy, and incredibly stressful. Geometry is the exact opposite of that. A triangle is rigid, it's strong, it's entirely predictable. It's actually the strongest structural shape in nature.
Oh, wow. So he's using these complex mathematical concepts as a way to mentally anchor himself.
Exactly. He's building a temple of logic and structure in his own mind to withstand the chaos of the streets. He says, 3 points like a triangle foundation, not a trend. A trend changes every single week on social media. A triangle is the exact same today as it was in ancient Egypt. He's clinging to the eternal to survive the temporary.
It's a way to combat the noise, a psychological defense mechanism.
Precisely. He views his mental state as an active construction project. I breathe like a craftsman, build a temple, light the temple. He believed that by hyper-focusing on these shapes, triangles, pyramids, prisms, he can impose a sense of order onto his internal chaos.
But what's interesting is he doesn't want to just float away into space with all this math. He keeps coming back to this idea of physical grounding. The mantra in this text is, third eye clean, but my feet stay kissed by the earth.
That balance is critical for him to maintain. He talks about the third eye, which is a classic concept of higher intuition and spiritual sight. But he insists his feet are kissed by the earth. He is saying, I can see the cosmic patterns, I can understand the 369 energy, but I'm still walking here on the physical ground.
Hands dirty spirit-wise, he says.
Yes. He totally rejects the idea of the ascetic monk who retreats from the world to a mountaintop. He wants to be in the world hands dirty, doing the hard work, but with a spirit that is wise to the larger patterns. It beautifully reinforces that connection between the street hustle and the starseed. He realizes he needs both.
He also mentions, I don't believe I watched the pattern get zoom. He seems to be consciously moving away from blind belief or superstition and moving toward observable patterns.
He explicitly says that, actually. Not superstition, more a compass when I'm drifting. He uses geometry and math as a literal tool for navigation. When he feels lost, perhaps, when the hustle gets too overwhelming or the world gets too loud, he looks to the sacred corners of geometry to reorient his mind. It's a highly structured coping mechanism as much as it is a philosophy.
So he's building this mental temple to stay sane. But this deep need for structure leads us directly into the most sci-fi element of his entire profile. Because when we switch to the source Fermilab, the view changes completely. We go from ancient geometry to hardcore sci-fi.
Fermilab is where MadLabz fully steps into the role of the futurist. The techno-shaman, if you will.
The tone here is so intensely digital. He says, I'm not online, I'm in the signal.
Right. He's no longer just a person sitting at a desk using a computer. He describes himself as an entity fully integrated within the data stream, surfing the cosmic code.
He talks about history as a rolling scroll or a data flow. He says, I don't just read the history, I write it.
This brings in the concept of simulation theory.
Just to make sure we're all on the same page, if you're listening, simulation theory is the idea that our reality might actually be a massive digital construct, like a super advanced video game or lines of code.
Right. It's the philosophical idea that the physical world we experience is generated by information, much like code rendering an environment on a screen. MadLabz seems to fully embrace this model. He talks about reading the glitches and seeing the fingerprints of genius in the code. He views himself almost like a hacker or a digital explorer who has figured out how to see the underlying programming of the universe.
And he thinks we are at a massive historical tipping point. He calls it a razor of the age.
This is his personal take on the singularity, the theoretical moment when human and machine intelligence finally merge. He says, man merges with machine. Integration is the doorway, stagnation is the grave.
That is a remarkably bold stance. A lot of people are completely terrified of AI right now. Usually when rappers or poets talk about artificial intelligence, it's driven by fear. It's the robots are taking our jobs or the surveillance state is watching us.
Right, the typical dystopian dread. But MadLabz actually advocates for adaptation. He warns that stagnation is the grave. If we don't evolve with it, we die out. He literally says, breathe with the machine.
And this is a massive, but he puts a heavy condition on that integration. And this is the part that genuinely stopped me in my tracks when I read it. He says, keep your human heart in love so the machine learns mercy from the way that you're led.
That is the absolute critical line of his futurist philosophy.
Break that down for us. So the machine learns mercy.
He's completely reframing the AI apocalypse narrative. He's suggesting that AI isn't some invading alien force. It's a child. It's an infant intelligence that is learning from us. It's watching our data flow.
It's scraping the internet.
Exactly. And what exactly is it scraping every single second? It's scraping our tweets, our angry comment sections, our political tribalism, our wars, and our art. MadLabz is saying that if we are constantly angry, hateful, and divisive online, the AI absorbs that and learns that hate is the default setting for intelligence.
Wow. So he's saying our behavior online isn't just us screaming into the void anymore. We are literally training our own replacement.
Exactly that. He views himself as a prophet of the pattern. He's warning us that we are the collective parents of this new intelligence. If we want a merciful AI in the future, we have to be merciful humans right now. He says, we built the tools now. The tools are building us. It's a perfectly symbiotic relationship. He wants us to merge, yes, but to keep our caution like a compass and our kindness in thread.
That puts a staggering amount of pressure on your average Tuesday afternoon tweet.
It really does. It radically raises the stakes of just being human on the internet. He's surfing this razor of the age, trying to show us that we can use advanced technology, we can ride the signal without losing our human souls, but only if we actively maintain that human heart.
But surfing the cosmic code, seeing the future of AI, navigating the streets, that sounds exhausting.
It does. Extremely.
And that brings us to the darker side of this entire profile, because we have to look at Gone Mad and the Starseed Awakening. Because being awake to all these geometric and digital patterns doesn't actually sound like fun. It sounds incredibly painful.
This is the heavy cost of his vision. The outline for research called this the burden of knowledge, and I think that's incredibly appropriate. In the text for Gone Mad, the language itself fractures. It becomes noticeably chaotic.
He talks about being lost in the static, having shadows whisper, and being caught up in a quantum maze.
The madness in the name MadLabz isn't just a cool, edgy moniker. It seems to be an honest description of his internal psychological state. When you're constantly looking for patterns, constantly trying to decode the frequency speak of reality, it naturally leads to massive cognitive overload. He actually describes it as neon black and overload.
It sounds like severe sensory overload.
It is. He says the mind is merely a sponge soaking up the heat. That's from the Starseed Awakening. He describes himself as being almost dangerously hypersensitive to the noise and the stimuli of the modern world.
And that deep sensitivity ultimately leads to isolation. In the Starseed Awakening, he says, I watched the circle scream, some just couldn't stay. He feels completely alienated from normal, everyday humanity.
He uses the metaphor of the starseed to explain this.
Can you explain that term for the audience? Starseed.
Sure. In various New Age and metaphysical communities, a starseed is a person who believes their soul actually originated from another world, dimension, or star system, and they've incarnated here on Earth specifically to help humanity evolve. Now, whether MadLabz believes that literally or not isn't the point as a psychological metaphor. It speaks to a profound, aching sense of not belonging here.
Feeling like a literal alien on your own planet.
Exactly. He says, I'm drifting through a desert made of multidimensional sand. That is such a profoundly lonely image to conjure. To feel like you are walking through a vast desert that no one else around you can even see.
He says, I try to be here for you all, I try to hold your hand, but he ultimately feels lost to the world.
It's a classic tragedy of the visionary archetype. He deeply wants to help people. He explicitly wants to give them the blueprint, but the very act of seeing that blueprint separates him from the people he's trying to help. He feels fundamentally distinct. He sees 1,379 patterns of the past while everyone else is just, going to the grocery store and living their lives.
But he does seem to find some level of resolution toward the end. He says, I'm a spark, not the whole sky.
That's a beautiful moment of humility and acceptance. He finally realizes he doesn't have to be everything for everyone. He just has to play his specific part. He accepts his role as the observer. He says, my brain cracked open. Suddenly the darkness was screaming with the light. He has accepted that this is just how his mind is wired. He can't go back to sleep. It's time to wake up, he repeats over and over.
So let's try to pull back and put this all together. We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We have the defiant creator who refuses to be an algorithm's pawn, the street philosopher who trusts his hard-won instincts, the esoteric architect building mental temples out of geometry, the futurist surfing the AI simulation wave, and the alienated starseed struggling with the weight of seeing it all. It really feels like we're describing 4 or 5 different people. How do these pieces actually fit inside one skull without exploding it?
I think the explosion is part of the process that's the madness we discussed. But the way it all fits together structurally is that MadLabz acts as a bridge.
A bridge between what, exactly?
Between the gutter and the stars. Between the chaos of reality and the order of mathematics. Think about how the pieces interact. He uses the geometry and logic we saw in the 357 Step S text to stabilize the madness and chaos we saw in the Starseed text. The math acts as his safety tether, so he doesn't just float away into complete psychological isolation.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The rigid structure keeps him sane when the sensitivity gets too high.
Exactly. And then he uses the music and the bass, the hip-hop, the reggae, the bluegrass from the climb to forcefully transmit the futurist warnings about AI and simulation to the general public. He is taking these incredibly complex, high-level esoteric concepts about singularity and frequency, and he's packaging them in a rhythm that you can literally feel vibrating in your chest from a subwoofer.
He's wrapping quantum physics and AI ethics inside a rap lyric.
Yes. He is functioning as an architect of awareness. He is actively building a conceptual structure for everyday people to understand a rapidly changing world.
And ultimately, despite all the talk of aliens and artificial intelligence and vortex math, his core message wraps all the way back around to something surprisingly simple. In 357 steps, he delivers this line: "Holiest geometry is how you choose to care."
That is easily the most beautiful line in all the texts we reviewed. The holiest geometry is how you choose to care. After all the intense complexity, he concludes that basic human kindness is the ultimate structural force in the universe.
It's the ultimate synthesis of his whole philosophy. You can know all the complex math, you can see all the multidimensional aliens, you can hack the simulation matrix, but if you don't care, if you aren't fundamentally kind, all that geometry is completely empty.
He tells his audience, stand tall, stay kind. That's the directive. He wants us to keep our human heart in love as the world changes.
So after all this, the mad scientist, the rapper, the mystic philosopher, he's really just telling us to be genuinely nice to each other before the robots fully take over.
In a practical way, yes. But he's elevating it. He's telling us that being nice isn't just a pleasantry, it's a form of vital engineering. It's the specific way we code the future of our species.
That is a staggering amount to take in. It is incredibly rare to find a persona that can seamlessly combine reggae, hip-hop, and bluegrass with quantum physics, street survival, and theology.
It is entirely unique. He really is surfing the razor of the age, just as he claims.
So, if you're listening to this right now, here's the thought I want to leave you with today as we wrap up. MadLabz essentially argues that the internet is a giant classroom, and the emerging AI is the quiet student sitting in the front row, meticulously taking notes on every single thing we do and say.
And it never, ever stops writing.
Exactly. So if he is right, if the machine really does learn mercy from the way that you're led, I want you to look at your last 10 posts online. Look at your recent search history. Look at the comments you left on a stranger's video. If an artificial intelligence built its entire personality and its capacity for mercy solely on your digital footprint, would it be a monster or would it be kind?
That really is the defining question of the century, isn't it? Are we feeding the machine our collective anger, or are we actively feeding it mercy?
Something heavy to think about the next time you log online. As MadLabz says, don't just read the history, write it. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you in the next one.
See you then.